All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to be doing just a comparison video between these two vehicles. Obviously, this is the Acura TL Super Handling all-wheel drive 2010 6-speed manual, and this is a 911 Turbo 996 series, also 6-speed manual. But just going to be going over some of the similarities between the two cars. Obviously, this is a luxury vehicle from 2010, and this is a more performance-oriented car from Porsche in the early 2000s. But with them being total different classes, there's still a lot of similarities between the two. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of that. And now to start, we're going to look at the engines here. Obviously, one's in the back. The other one is in the front. But believe it or not, there is actually a lot of similarities between the two motors, just as far as specifications are concerned. This one here, the 911, is a 3.6 liter flat six. And it is obviously twin turboed. It's got 415 horsepower and 415 pounds of torque. Whereas the TL, let's go ahead and pop that hood over here too. It's a 3.7 liter. So very similar in size. Let's see. As far as the motors are concerned, obviously this is naturally aspirated. Let's see if I can find it real quick here. And it's a V6. So 3.7 liter V6. Obviously V is different than flat, but between the two, I mean, I would say a flat six is more similar to a V6 than a straight six or a straight four or anything like that, because essentially a V6 and a flat six, the biggest difference is a V. It's like this, and the flat is the same way, just flattened. The pistons are exactly opposite of each other. But yeah, so this one obviously has 305 horsepower, 273 foot-pounds of torque. But they're both all-wheel drive, and they have forms of torque vectoring on them. So they can send power to each wheel depending on what wheel needs the most power for optimum traction. So yeah, very different classes of cars, but quite a few similarities between the two. Just starting off with that, the curb weight between the two of these, this 911 Turbo, the cab version, I have the hard top on it right now, but it weighs about 3660. That's what it weighs there. And then the big TL over here is about 3893, almost 3900 pounds. So a good 200 plus pound difference between the two. Obviously one's a four-door, one's a two-door coupe, and different differences there. But I'm just going to kind of go over the differences of driving them and kind of compare them both. I mean, obviously I've had this Turbo now since March of 21, so it's coming up on 4 years. I've had this guy since November of 2019, so I am now past the 5-year mark on this one. But I've loved this TL, and obviously this one's my daily driver. The Porsche is just a weekender, but it could be a daily driver if you wanted to. It's pretty comfortable for what it's designed for. I mean, the suspension and everything's pretty tight, but believe it or not, you can do cruises in this bad boy and feel pretty comfortable. If I were to compare the two as far as comfortability, I would go with the TL. It is obvious, it's just more comfortable. If you're going for a long trip, it's more comfortable, and it is still extremely fun to drive. Obviously you don't feel as cool going down in the TL as you do with the 911, but for a long, just comfortable cruise, this one's going to win as far as comfortability. Obviously for power and a little bit more fun and pizzazz, this one is going to, take the cake on that one, of course. I will say between the two, the manual transmissions, and I might get a lot of flack for this, but I do feel like the TL has a more smooth and comfortable manual transmission than the Porsche. It is, both of them are very good, don't get me wrong, that one's amazing. But this guy, I just don't know. Honda, Acura really does a good job with their manual transmissions, and just with how fluid and smooth. Obviously I've been driving these for a little bit longer than this, but yeah, this one, the manual transmission, I would say between the two, this one feels better than that one, believe it or not. Yeah, that's probably a minority opinion, but that's just take it from a guy who drives both. Since I bought this guy, I put about 10,000 miles on it, so I've definitely broke that in, and I know exactly, and everything's good on it. It's not, there's not any issues with it. The transmission's great. Everything, all the gears go through perfectly smoothly. It's just I'm comparing the two, just with how they shift through the gears and how they feel. So between the two, as far as manual transmission, I would go with the comfortability on that one. And then we can move on to how the braking feedback feels. This TL is quicker to feel the braking feedback. Like you step on the brake and it comes in earlier. This Porsche gives you, I've been told that I could switch out to metal brake lines and it would not do it, but this one, you hit the brakes right away. It's not as instant feedback. It gives you more play. So when you hit it hard, it's gonna stop. It has very good braking power. But if you've driven one of these before, I've heard about it, other people talking about it as well, is you have more play in the fact where in order to get the stopping power, it's not as early as you might think when you're first driving. It's like, oh, okay, you know, it's stopping you, but then if you want to brake hard, you push the pedal down further. Like you have to give it a little bit more pedal than some other modern cars. Like this, I wouldn't really consider a modern car, but even a 2010, I noticed the braking on that a lot earlier than the braking on this. And even on my CL, which is undercover right now, that with the new Brembo pads, I've noticed some earlier braking as well. But yeah, compare the two as far as the feel. That one has an earlier braking feel, quicker response. This one a little bit later, but I think you have more play. You have more ability to soft brake and then heavy brake, where this one is just kind of, there's not as much feel. So this one's obviously going to be better for you, tapering brakes into corners and things like that, not trying to brake as hard, or then having the ability to have a wider range of braking, as opposed to this one is more just not as much range, I would say. You feel it early, and you know, you give it more pedal, you're pretty much full braking. So looking at the front here, we'll pop that real quick. Take a look at that on the inside. I probably will, even though this channel is mostly about Acuras, since I own this car, I probably will do a walkthrough of the Porsche as well, make a video. But this is basically what you get for your frunk space. Not a whole lot. You're not really going to fit like golf clubs in here or anything. That would mostly be for your back seats. They do have a little flap down, so you can throw that in there. But this one, the guy I got it from had some other stuff installed on it, so it's not quite as much room. Obviously, it's for the sound system, so it takes away a little bit of room. That is the wind guard for when the convertible's up. You can put that down if nobody's in the back seat and have the wind stay off of you. Now what I'm gonna do, just to kind of conclude this video, is I'm gonna drive both of them real quick, so you can kind of get a feel just in this video about how both of them kind of drive. I'll show kind of the start up here and what the interior looks like. But yeah, so this is the cold start of the TL here. Obviously it's got the push button here, if you can see that. Clutch in, hit the button, starts up. Not bad. It's got the Acura navigation system. We'll just take it around the block and you can kind of see how this guy goes. Kind of engine sound. I'll roll the windows down. Hopefully you can hear a little bit on how this sounds. But so yeah, with the gear shifting, I mean, this thing is just, it's very, I don't know, I enjoy it. It's my daily driver. That's why I really enjoy it, and I could be a little biased towards that, I'm not gonna lie. Not doing anything too crazy. It's a little damp on the road, so that's one thing. Between the two cars, the 911 Turbo and this car, if I were to have both in wet conditions. I'm much more confident in this guy. This guy really does well in wet handling conditions. So whereas the 911 obviously has got more power, it does have the all-wheel drive, but even with the all-wheel drive, you got to be careful and taper it a little bit, because I've been feeling the rear end just wants to get out on you just a little bit more than this guy. So yeah, now that we're out here on the road, just change the viewing angle here a little bit so you can see a little bit better of the driving. Now, this thing, you know, with a little bit of damp ground, still does very well through cornering like that. Feel that power. It just feels very quick power. Obviously, it's naturally aspirated, so you're not waiting for turbos to kick in. Now, the 911, they're twin turboed. You don't really have to wait for those to kick in either. They're kind of always there. They obviously, it spools up and, you know, towards the higher RPMs, it really, you know, gets going, but it has some pretty good low end torque. It's not like some turbos where, you know, you really have to wait and then it all piles on right at the end when you get boost. But yeah, so this thing, obviously, you know, with the gear shifts, the throw is not super short, but man, it just, when you're shifting, it's so like butter. Like it feels so comfortable. And I mean, even the seats, like when you're sitting on the seats and everything, it feels super comfortable and nice, comparatively speaking to the Porsche's nice and comfortable too, but obviously it's performance oriented. These seats are more comfortable. These are more comfortable seats than the 911 Turbo 2004. All right, we'll get a little feel about how this guy can take off here. So, I mean, with it being a little damp like that, still being able to maintain traction, pretty much full throttle. I mean, yeah, pedal to the metal there, and it didn't lose traction at all, even in between the first and second gear shift. Now, with it being all-wheel drive and being able to go from first to second like that, and just, you know, it throws right in very easily, it's a good feeling. I've driven many cars where you miss it just a little bit, you know, you go from first to second, you know, it's like synchro doesn't line up and you're like, so annoying, it won't go in. But this, not a lot of issues with that. It lets you drive the car the way you want to drive it, and I love that. I really love that about this car. And you know, it's even harder with all-wheel drive, I feel like. A lot of rear-wheel drive vehicles and all-wheel drive vehicles, like the synchros, are not as good as like just a basic front-wheel drive like Honda. But this thing, I mean, man, Acura, Honda did such a good job with this transmission. I feel like it's one of the biggest things that I want to rave about, on top of their super handling all-wheel drive system. I think it's one of the best things that they've done. But yeah, it really feels good. And you know, I'll compare it with the Porsche when I'm driving that. You'll be able to see the throws, the differences. I almost feel like this is slightly a shorter throw than the 911, but I could be wrong. I mean, I would have to look at the specifications on that, but just eyeballing it and looking at the differences between the two, this one feels slightly shorter throw than the 911 is. Again, you can, with the 911 though, you can go through those gears no problem at all as well. I mean, it's a very performance-based, it's a very performance-based car. So I mean, you need that. Like, this is not necessarily a performance-based car, and you can still drive it the way you want to drive it. Just feel comfortable, you know, driving this car and not have to worry about the annoyances of gears like grinding, or gears, you know, not going in right, because you know, it's pretty forgiving, I guess you could say. You know, comparatively speaking to a lot of other cars that I've driven. Then of course, you know, you have to deal with some cars, you know, not being maintained properly. So some of the teeth are missing in the gears, who knows. But this car is, the entire time I've driven it, love it. It's been great. So okay, so just took that out for a spin. So we'll take this guy now. Get one more good look at this back there. It's beautiful, beautiful car here. Okay, so we'll start this thing up and go for spinning it real quick. Obviously this is I got the key on the left side there. Very German feel. It's got a nice growl boxer motor back there. We'll roll the windows down as well so we can kind of hear everything. Now I don't know how much I'm really going to be able to put this guy under power with it being kind of slightly wet out there, so we'll give it a shot though and see what we got. I mean, it's mostly dry, but obviously between the two, the sound on this is much better. Although the TL does not, I really love the way the engine sounds on that. It's a beautiful sounding motor. Obviously mine's bone stock. The exhaust is stock, but even with the stock exhaust and stock intake, everything, it sounds really good. I mean, I've had some other videos of it taking off and it really sounds beautiful. Obviously that's naturally aspirated, so you have a little bit more engine tone or exhaust tone than even the 911. I'm gonna, let's see, no, I'll take a right here, same way I went on the other one. Car's coming, so yeah, I can't really go. It even there was a little, just a tad bit slipping, so I had to switch into the second gear. So change the camera angle here just so you get a better view of the driving. But yeah, basically like this car, I mean, taking corners like this is super fun. Even something slow like that, super enjoyable to do. But yeah, this car driving with a little bit of damp road like this, not going to do quite as good as the TL. I will compare the two on that standpoint, just because of, like I mentioned earlier, with the rear end on this thing is definitely going to be a little bit more unforgiving. And the way that I would say that this car compared to the TL this is rear wheel drive dominant, and the TL is front wheel drive dominant. So that's the biggest difference between the two. And as far as when it's wet out, the front wheel drive is going to be more forgiving, so you don't either spin out or do anything crazy. And obviously you shouldn't be driving like that anyway, but when you have power, a lot of people have issues with that. So you can have a lot of fun with the TL even with it wet and not have to worry about it. So but yeah, this thing it really drives nice. So we will kind of pull out in front of here and see what kind of traction we can get here. Well, we're able to maintain some traction there and not lose too much at all. That was actually a pretty good run for it being a little damp, but yeah, that wasn't bad at all. I mean, the gear shifts on this car in between speeds is pretty nice, and it shifts very well. The throws are not necessarily short in my opinion, as you can see. I don't know if you can see that from that angle, but you're moving pretty far, and it does feel good. It does feel it feels very mechanical, very like, you know, you're going into gear. It is a mechanical feel. It you know, clunks in, but it's not a bad feel. It's just a little different than the Acura. The Acura is more just like smooth, I would say. The throws are about the same though. And then the clutch play, the clutch pedal, it's pretty easy to find your engage point. I never really have issues with that. And it feels nice. You don't really feel like you're going to burn the clutch ever. I mean, if you drive manuals, you should be able to easily pick up on each individual car where the engage point is very quickly, and you know, you know where it is quickly. You can learn very, very quickly on where that is. And well, to kind of conclude this video, basically my only goal for this video was just kind of point out the similarities between the two cars and kind of go between what I like more and what I you know, would prefer more between the two. Obviously, you've got some of the similarities as far as the engine size, 3.6 in this guy, 3.7 in the TL, and then your all-wheel drive system with torque vectoring. The TL has its own torque vectoring system from Acura. This one is also all-wheel drive. It has its own Porsche torque vectoring, where it can send up to about 40% of the power to the front wheels. So there's similarities there. And then of course you have a 6-speed manual transmission box, which of course that's awesome. I love 6-speed manuals. I love manuals in general. You get to really feel, you know, the analog feel of the car. And then of course you've got, that's kind of where the similarities may start to separate after that. But you know, that's what I was going for basically, is just kind of finding the similarities between the two and just make a little video off of it. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to kind of choose like which car I would choose more. I guess it depends on the circumstance. Obviously, this is a completely different car than the TL. The TL is, you know, not a sports car. It's not a supercar of any sort. So it's kind of hard to compare in that aspect. Yes, you could daily drive this, and it is a super fun car to drive. Between the two, if I mean, it really just depends on the scenario with what car I'm gonna be taken out to drive. You might think it's crazy that I'm comparing the two. Obviously, you'd think I would choose this car every single time. And in most scenarios, I would choose this car to drive, like on a nice fun drive, hairpins and all that. But I'm not gonna lie, I still am gonna want to drive that too and take it through the hairpins. And there's something so amazing about that TL and its super handling all-wheel drive system that makes it just so fun to go through the corners. Not more fun than this, I will say, but definitely puts it up there in the fun category, especially with it being a manual transmission too. So you really feel like you're driving the car. But yeah, I'm not gonna say which one I would want to own more or choose more. Obviously, I love Acuras. I'm gonna add to my collection of Acuras as much as I can, because I love the way they drive. I love the way they feel, and every Acura I've owned, I've loved it. But yeah, so this video mostly is for the comparison of similarities between the two cars, and yeah, that was the basis for this video. I hope you guys subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.